Hey guys, and welcome to another episode of Content and Caffeine. Oh, Abdul, I'm getting some weird, feedback when I'm talking into the thing right now. Okay, I think
Yeah,
that's better.
I had the same on my end. It's like a crumbly noise.
Yeah. Okay, let's start again. Okay. Hey guys, and welcome to the Hey guys, and welcome to another episode of Content and Caffeine. I'm joined this week by Abdul Shakur. He is the founder of Etiquette Agency, a community building agency. Abdul, thank you for joining me today.
Really appreciate the invite. It's a pleasure to come on the show.
Excellent, great to have you. So, as we always do, I'm going to ask you, what's your favorite coffee, and where in the world is your favorite place to drink it?
Oh, so I'm really a latte fan. So I love a fan of latte because I really never understood coffee when I was younger. So I never really liked the taste of it. So when I got into coffee, the first thing I actually liked was actually lattes. I started off with lattes. My favorite place to drink it, it's gotta be my hometown of Birmingham, if I'm honest. I've had some amazing coffee around the world, but I think my hometown of Birmingham, there's some really cool, nice independent coffee places that I love going to. I think I love supporting the independent businesses, and yeah, I would say there's definitely a few places in Birmingham that I would recommend.
Awesome. I do prefer the independent coffee shops. Is there any single one that's your favorite in Birmingham, in case I'm ever down there, or in case any listeners ever down in Birmingham, UK?
Uh, Urban Coffee or 200 Degrees, probably between the two.
Okay, 200 degrees sounds interesting. Interesting. Next time I'm in Birmingham, I'm going to check those guys out. So
Perfect.
let's talk about your agency and your background. So Etiquette Agency, you guys help companies build communities, right? So how
Yeah.
did that come about, and what inspired you to get involved in sort of community building?
So I've been in business over 8 years, and the thing was, I was a kind of a guy that was kind of a jack of all trades, if you want to call it that, because I did different things. I moved on from business to industry. I moved on to different things. So I started, doing the marketing, social media. Moved on to building a recruitment business. Then invested in an events exhibition franchise. Then even built a personal development company, and all these skills I learned along the way all then came back to them and say, actually, you know what? The number one key skill that I've been able to maintain across all these isn't really social media. It's actually building a community around a specific audience, regardless of which industry I'm in. So that was a key skill that I realized. And then I looked online, did some research, and I thought, okay, how can I differentiate myself? Nobody's really talking about building communities. Yes, people are building communities, companies like WeWork, and there's other amazing SaaS companies out there are building communities, but nobody is really owning that space. And there's only a bit of research done on community building. So if you look at the only sort of platform that are doing it is Harvard Business Review, they're the only ones that are really going into detail about the power of building communities. So I thought, okay, I want to own that space, and I think it's where the future is going, if I'm honest.
Interesting. Okay. Well, it's interesting you mentioned SaaS companies as well, starting to build communities. It's definitely true in the software space, especially when it comes to open source software. Um, Again, the concept is that the code and the actual code itself is open to the public, and therefore communities sort of naturally build around that because people are sort of making their own adjustments and sharing their additions to the code, or how they've sort of used the code to build something interesting. And naturally, in an open source environment, communities just sort of build. And open source software companies, they usually facilitate that by having like a forum on their website, or some sort of some sort of community, internal community, whether it's like an intranet or an extranet, something like that, where they're
Mhm.
sort of always engaging with their customers. But I do think it's definitely sort of expanding that sort of community spirit is expanding into software companies that aren't just that aren't open source. They may be closed sourced software
Mm.
vendors and SaaS companies. But why do you think that is? Why should a software company, why should a SaaS company bother with a community? And what should that community actually look like? Is it just a forum, or could it be something else?
There's different ways to go about it. I think there's the reason why people are building communities now is because it has many advantages. It's not just a marketing tactic anymore. It's actually, for me, it's a business strategy, and I think most people are realizing that it's a very good business strategy to have because you're not only talking about customer success, customer sales, customer service. You're not actually looking at loyalty. You're looking at marketing and brand awareness. You're also looking at how you can innovate and move your product forward by listening to your audience and getting that feedback. So for me, it not only solves a lot of problems for our businesses, but it also creates a lot of opportunities too. Um, and sorry, what was the question on after that?
Yeah. So the second question I asked was, what does a community look like? Is there a specific thing that it is? Is it because when I think of community, I think of like an online forum. I'm a bit I'm a little bit old school there. Where when I was growing up with the internet about 10 years ago, there was loads of, and there still are obviously loads of forums. So I would join forums about video games and whatnot, and that was a community for me. But is it, should a software company looking to build a community, should they then just start a forum, or is there another way of going about it?
There's loads of ways you can go about it. I think now you've got so many different platforms that people are using to build a community. You can even start off by a simple newsletter and have your email community as a way to reach out to people. But in that email newsletter, you could have a series of podcasts, a series of videos. And I've been trial and testing this out over the last couple of years as well, where it seems to me that as long as I'm adding value to people, regardless of which platform it is, it doesn't really matter. So for example, you could build Facebook groups, you could build Slack communities, you could build WhatsApp communities, you could build physical offline meetups. But I think the key understanding is you can't just look at one platform. You got to build a community on as many platforms as you can, because now people are using different platforms, and you don't know where's the best place to reach someone. So you have to build numerous platforms, which makes it more accessible for everyone.
Yeah, good point. I'd agree with that. So what you're saying is, Facebook groups, LinkedIn groups, and everything in between, right? So, but how does a company, take that, if they say they've got themselves a small but growing community online, if they've opened up a LinkedIn group and a Facebook group, and then they have a forum on the website, how do they begin to sort of provide value to those community members? What should they do? Should they just provide them with content? Should they sort of interact with them in a casual way and not always a professional way? Like, for example, I do see some companies, again, some software companies that have a forum, and the founder of the company and the top executives are on that forum, and they're engaging very, very casually. Is that something you recommend, or should it always be kept quite professional?
Totally, I think the casualness is very important, because one, you need, again, in a world where everyone's being very professional and very sort of, we need to be human, because if we're not human, how are we supposed to build that trust? So for me, one of the key things I'd recommend is, be casual, be personalized, and be as personalized as you possibly can. But I think one of the ways, there's two ways of kind of going around how you can actually do this. One is by bringing people together offline. I think most SaaS companies don't think about this, where I would recommend bringing them offline, just bringing them together. Even if it's just, people just turn up and have a drink and have a coffee, and then just enjoy themselves, and then just get to know each other. I think that's way of strengthening the community. I think the other is allowing them to be the experts. I think I always have this rule about building a community, that you should give the power back to them by allowing them to feel like they're in control and they're dictating, because what that will then allow them to do, they will then become your ambassadors, they'll then become your evangelists, and they will then push your community out there for you, um, purely because they feel like they're in control.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me. And I think something else to touch on is that, when you have a community of people that are engaged with the voices at the top of the company, or voices from within the company, as you say, it turns them into brand ambassadors. It suddenly gives them a brand new perspective of what this company is, right? They're not just a software vendor. They're not just whatever product they produce. There's actual humans here. There's actual people driving this company forward. They've got a personality. They understand my pains and my issues because they've gone through so on and so forth. Because I saw them talk about it on their forum, or I saw them mention it on the Facebook group, or I saw them mention it on their Instagram story. Does that come into it as well? Does it come into it when does it help to build a community when those voices inside the company sort of personal brand themselves in a way where they're sharing content through their social channels and linking out back into the community?
Oh, 100%. I think the first, I know I have a series of steps that I take my clients to, and the first thing that I always say to them is, are your employees online? Do you have a personal brand? Because I think if you look at my journey of the last 8 years, the only reason why I've been able to shift through all these different industries is purely because of the personal brand element. So you can take away the business, you can take away everything else, strip that away for a second, and think about, how can I build a meaningful relationship with someone and gain their trust? That's what a SaaS and business is about. That's how long-term retention kind of comes into play. if you want to do that, you got to strip away that and just be and have a personalized brand and have a personal brand that people can connect with you as a human being.
I totally agree. I totally agree. And there is a way to separate, the professional brand and your personal brand. And obviously, there's a strong link between the two. And obviously, you shouldn't go beyond limits when you're sort of doing your personal content. You should always, remain some level of professionalism. But I do think that some companies struggle to make that different, to differentiate. Like, how do I market myself and my company at the same time? I don't want to give the wrong image. I don't want inconsistent branding, inconsistent messaging. But I think if you just give people an authentic insight, instead of trying to sort of engineer it, if you just give them an authentic insight into, the CEO and his day going about sort of managing the company, then that's it. And that's the authentic truth. And you don't have to worry about inconsistencies, because if you're not engineering it, then there won't be any inconsistencies. It'll just be real. Don't you agree?
Yeah, totally. I think you said it perfectly. I think the key thing here is documentation. If you're documenting your journey, regardless of where you are, who you are in the company, and what position you're in, if you document your journey on a day-to-day basis, that is your authentic self most of the time. And if you share your story and if you share your interest, that's that's got nothing to do. That might not always have something to do with business, but it makes you relatable. And I think people sometimes people are afraid of showing a different side to them. But I show a bit my marriage life. I show a bit about my about some of my for example, my fitness journey. What that does, it allows to show people that actually I'm not only growing in my business, but I'm a person that strives to grow in my personal life. And that is and what you realize even on social media when you're posting content, the personal content does better than the business content. Why? Because even if you look at algorithms on Facebook right now, there's they're saying they need to make the content needs to be more personalized. It needs to be more. It can't be a businessy sort of pitch anymore. That doesn't work.
Absolutely, and it's the same on LinkedIn's algorithm as well. When you're a company page sharing content, you're less likely to sort of be pushed up the newsfeed, if you will, by LinkedIn if you publish it from a business page. Whereas if you publish it from a personal page, your personal LinkedIn account, then that post is more likely to be seen by more people. And it's because of what you just mentioned. What I was going to say is, the reason why I'm bringing up the whole community feel and the whole content marketing feel with personalized brand is because putting that content out there, as you say, it builds trust and it allows people to relate to you, and that in turn helps you to build a community, right? And your community could live on Instagram. It could be your Instagram following. That could be an extension of your community, and those people will naturally funnel towards your product and your business. Because they're relating to you on Instagram. So
Even from a sales point of view, if you want to look at this from a more practical sales point of view, the biggest struggle that we have as sales professionals, any business development managers within the SaaS space or business space, they struggle with following up. They struggle with the nurturing side of it. If you're posting content, if you're creating content every single day, what you're subconsciously doing is nurturing that client, is nurturing and following up with that client without them knowing. Because if you're showing up all the time, they will remember you. You're at the forefront of their mind. And that is the power of putting content out there and building a community that most people don't think about.
that's so true. I mean, there's been many times where with Wordify, my agency, when we're talking to a potential client, and and they say, any agency owner will know this. We're going to come back to you next week, or we'll come back to you in a couple of weeks, or so on and so forth. And then I see them consuming my content on LinkedIn or Instagram. I see them watching the Instagram story, and I know I don't have to follow up anymore because the decision maker's actually been reminded because he saw my story. He's reminded, subconsciously that, oh, I've got to get back to Kaya about that conversation we had. So I know that happens. That's not just something that happens in theory. That really does happen in practice as well. So very, very important point there. And again, it all leads back to community, and that person becomes part of the community because they're consuming your content. And if you're leading them back to a forum, great. If you're leading them back to your blog, fantastic. And as you said previously, that community needs to spread out across all different channels, and that's exactly how the community grows, by sort of getting 3 or 4 people interested in your brand from Instagram, 3 or 4 people interested from Pinterest, 10 people from Facebook, and suddenly they're congregating on your website on a regular basis. They're becoming repeat visitors, not just visiting once and leaving. And if they're in the buyer journey, if they're looking to purchase your product or subscribe to your SaaS product, then they're in the perfect position to do that now. So yeah, I think you've given us some fantastic things to think about there, and some good reasons for companies to consider a community building strategy in 2019. Is there anything I haven't asked you that you think is relevant?
People think about I think the thing that most people struggle with is how do they start building a community? And I think most people don't realize that you can't just rely on the online world of building a community. You have to, like I call it the relationship between marketing and sales, the balance between offline and online. You have to do a series of things offline in order to not only get people online to build a relationship online, but to have a stronger level of trust, because you still can't take away the face-to-face of doing something. So, for example, I built a 5,000 plus young entrepreneur community in 7 cities of the world. And one of the things that I did was, wherever I traveled, all I did was I set up a meetup event. And that meetup just brought people together. And the fact is, there wasn't no sales process there. There wasn't no sort of pitch there. People just came together. And what that allowed me to do was then, okay, funnel them into one of my communities, or get them onto my newsletter, or start a conversation about something else, or get them into a WhatsApp group. And now other people are leading these communities for me. So I've now stepped away from this, and other people are consistently doing the work for me, which saves me a lot of time and trouble. So sometimes people think, okay, how do we do that online? But actually, let's start off by doing something offline. Let's bring people together in a very natural, very casual way, and then look to, okay, let's now build our brand online.
That's super interesting, because another potential issue in the software space is that a lot of software companies think that if they're going to throw an event, if they're going to host an event, it needs to be, every single time, it needs to be big, glamorous, and impressive, right? But what you're saying is that you could just do a simple meetup, that's organized in a week, in the company sort of home city as well. Bring 20 people together for lunch or dinner, and just meet people who are interested in your product, meet your customers, meet your clients, and I think that would be a hugely, and you've proved it as well with what you just said. 5,000 strong community across 7 cities. It's something that can catch on. It doesn't need to be inside a grand hotel once a year. It can be done sort of throughout the year on a smaller scale.
You know what the funny thing is? I don't even pick a venue. I pick a hotel lobby. I just get people to turn up at that hotel lobby, and I'm just make sure I'm there half an hour early to make sure if there's any people who are looking lost, who are looking a bit troubled, that they can come and find me. So even it kind of says, okay, let's kind of take away the business. They've been working all day. Let's take away that. Let's just bring people together and get them to meet like-minded people. Because if you think about a community, what is a community? We all want to have a feeling of belonging. We all want to meet other people who actually understand and relate to us, and that's what community is about. And if that's not the core of what you do as a building a community, then you're going to miss out on everything else.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. See, I think a lot of software companies as well, because I work with them often, they'd see that as scrappy, right? They'd see that as it's not quite prestige enough for our brand, but really it's not scrappy. It doesn't have to be scrappy. It's casual, and as you say, a community, it needs people to belong, right? And to belong, it needs to be a casual setting. It can't be, a stiff upper lip all the time. There does need to be that element of just, relaxing and chatting and talking. And it goes back to the, content from a personal brand as well, where it's not as professional all the time. It's a little bit more casual. It's a little bit more personal. And I think there is this notion that you can't afford to be casual. You can't afford to appear as a little bit scrappy in case you damage your brand. But I think
if you want to make your brand look fancy, if you want to make your brand look amazing, why don't you take that community? Don't really promote that community. Meetup and Eventbrite and these sort of platforms promote a lot of these things for yourself. So just make sure you got your copy right and you're good to go. But when you're bringing people together, the key thing that people don't realize, this is the perfect opportunity for people to create content. One, you've got people that you can interview on a podcast. Two, you can take the stories of these individuals and share those stories on social media platforms when it comes to creating content. And thirdly, you can just allow people, kind of say, okay, these are my customers, without even saying they're your customers.
Yeah, that's a very good point. It's a content creation opportunity as well. 100% agree with you. I think that's a fantastic piece of advice as well there to use those community meetups to produce content. Absolutely. Abdul, I'm going to move us on to the quick fire question rounds. So are you ready for them? It's going to be 3 of them, and they're going to come quick, I suppose.
Go for it.
Okay. So, firstly, what's your favorite social network at the moment and why?
God, has to be Instagram.
Okay, I
Has
do
to
know
be
you.
Instagram.
Yeah, I do know you're active on there. It's probably the same for me right now as well. Actually, second one is whose content are you consuming the most right now?
I don't consume other people's content. I'm just I'm very much focused on creating my own content and consuming the content of my community.
I like that. I like that a lot. Okay, and give us one quick tip on how to produce content that makes an impact.
Tell stories. I think you gotta get and take a strip away the logic and focus on the emotion and how you want people to feel and make sure it's human.
Love it, love it. Abdul, you've been fantastic. That was Abdul Shakur from the Etiquette Agency. If people want to reach you online, how can they do that? What's the best way to reach you?
If they type my name in Abdul Shakur, LDN, stands for London. If you type that in any social media platform, they can find me on there.
Excellent. And we'll be able to link to your website and your LinkedIn page through the
Yep.
Wordify podcast show notes as well. So anybody who wants to get in touch with Abdul Shakur can do so through that link. Abdul, thank you very much again for coming on the show.
No worries, I appreciate it. I look forward to kind of connecting with everyone and getting everyone's thoughts as well.
Thanks again.
Perfect.
Okay, and that's it. So yeah, that's perfect. They're going to hit over a 20-minute mark. So that's fantastic. I think you gave us some great insights, Abdul. Thank you very much, man.
No worries, man. No worries. Can I get a copy of the sound file for this podcast? Because the only reason is I want to promote you and I want to share it on my podcast and send it out to my newsletter. So I was wondering
Absolutely.
if I can get that and I can promote that out there as well.
Yeah, I'll do that for you now. I think this is going to save it to the cloud immediately. And as soon as I get it, I'll send it over to you.
Perfect. I much appreciated.
Okay, thank you. Have a great Friday.
No worries, man. You too. Take care.
Bye bye.
Bye.